Well, thank you, Vic. If you wouldn't mind, give us your name, your title, and your role.
Sure. My name is Vic Walia. I'm the Senior Director of Brand Marketing at Expedia.
Can you expand on it, like responsibilities?
Yeah, sure. I oversee the marketing strategy at Expedia, which manifests itself into advertising and media across all of our marketing channels.
Great. So you want congratulations, by the way, for the Effie win,
Thanks.
for finding yours.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about that campaign. What was the burning insight or idea behind the campaign itself?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, Expedia's been around for a long time. And as we think about the advent of commerce online, what's happening is there is just a proliferation of online advertisers who are taking some share from Expedia. And it's becoming a very commoditized game, right? We're all competing on price and inventory. And when we start looking at the future, where's that going to go? We realize that that's not a long-term sustainable proposition to just continue to be in a price war with our competitors. So we started to look at changing the dialogue and really understand what does travel mean for the average person. While price is a consideration, really, travel is more than just getting from point A to point B. It's all the experiences that you get along the way. And so we tapped into that insight. And we wanted to develop a campaign that really spoke to the personal side of travel. So we call the campaign Find Yours. And Find Yours is about making travel personal.
I love the storytelling component of what you've been able to achieve, both
Thanks.
with the user generated as well as what you guys were putting together.
Mhm.
Did you guys find any elements about the story itself, like telling a story that you could share with other marketers?
Well, what we tried to do, and I'm glad we were able to achieve this, is not try to overly contrive the story, right? So what you'll notice in the work that's been the most successful and the work that's actually helped us achieve the Effie Award is work that is user-generated, very authentic stories. And what we did was we pulled these stories from real life examples, put them together in a way that resonates with consumers. So I think kind of my answer on how other marketers could learn from the little bit that we did there is there's stuff that's out there in the world. And all you have to do is go and find it to help craft your message. I think the messages that work really well are the ones that really come from the heart. And so that was part of our journey, which is to understand some of these travel moments that were transformational for people. And I think all the stories that we've been able to show are stories where we've proven that travel does have the power to transform you. And so those are the ones that resonate the most.
Your campaign was telling tremendous stories. What elements about storytelling can you share with other marketers?
Sure. Well, for us, what we tried to do was make sure that these stories weren't contrived, right? So these are real stories from genuine travelers. And that was part of our journey, which is to find these stories. Now, we had a thought going in, which is travel has the power to really transform you. And so we look for stories where through the journey of travel, our heroes in these stories were transformed. And the ones that have been the most successful are the ones where you're emotionally connecting with these true stories of people who are seeing the world either for the first time with a different lens or really having a connection with the other travelers that they're with. So that to me is been the best part, which is real examples. And I've had the pleasure of talking to some of these travelers and hearing their stories firsthand. And it's really both eye-opening and very warming.
Yeah. The one that sticks out in my mind is the father that's going to
Yes.
the wedding.
Artie.
Yeah, and the emotional component of that, and just him coming up to terms with life,
Yes.
and how life is today, and the elements of the LGBT community component. I wonder, was that just happened by circumstance, or is that a community that you guys kind of serve and try to talk to?
Yeah, well, I mean, the last part of the question, I'll answer that one first. So Expedia is a very diverse organization, and we know that travel appeals to everybody from any walk of life. So we don't try to target one group or another, and vice versa. We don't try to alienate a group or not. So this was a natural fit for us. With respect to the story and Artie's journey, I mean, it's a very deep journey, a very deep story, a very personal story, one that he was willing to share, as one that his daughters are willing to allow us to share as well. So as I mentioned, these are authentic stories, and that wedding happened, and just as we documented it, and so it was great to be part of that.
That's a beautiful moment.
Thanks.
So winning an Effie about marketing effectiveness. How would you define marketing effectiveness?
Yeah, it's a big question, right? So, and it's one of the things that I think organizations are still struggling with. I know we're struggling as well, because there's many different ways of measuring this. Fundamentally, we are going to look at the impact that we have on traffic to my store, right? So we want people coming to the store every day and buying something. So that is clearly a goal. But then we look at some of the other leading indicators of effectiveness, right? So in this particular campaign, one leading indicator of future success for us was the chatter on social networks, right? Which really blew up when we launched this campaign. Some of it was by design. We purposely placed the ad in various locations where we were going to get some feedback. But I'm glad that it took on a life of its own. And if you read some of the Twitter and Facebook and YouTube comments, you can see the overwhelming response for this campaign. And that, again, was a leading indicator of success. Now, of course, with this topic, which is very controversial, you have people from both sides of the debate. And that is just a part of our society with the open dialogue that we have, and we allow for that as a society, as a culture. And I think that's great, because it helps spur the dialogue and really elevate the conversation. And so I'm glad that we could be a part of it. When we launched this campaign, it was right around the time that the Supreme Court was deciding the Defense of Marriage Act. So it was also timed very well, and that was a serendipitous moment for us. So it helped with the dialogue, it helped with the chatter and social networks, and so that was a leading indicator of effectiveness. Now, ultimately, of course, we're still looking at traffic to the store, and I'm glad that we were able to really elevate the brand from an awareness perspective, which helped translate into traffic into our store.
Good. Well, let's talk a little bit about Vic.
Yeah, sure.
You've been successful in your career.
Somewhat, yeah.
What fuels that? What fuels you?
Yeah, I think it's the same thing that fuels everybody, right? It's just you want to do good work, and you want people to recognize that. And so I'm glad that we were able to do that on not just this campaign, but prior campaigns as well. I look at work and I ask myself, is this something, if I were marketed to, would I want this type of campaign? Whether it's a media choice or whether it's an ad choice. So it's really around doing good work and getting people to recognize that. And I still even get a little bit of a joy when I post a picture on Facebook and friends of mine are liking that picture. I mean, it's that praise, which is, it's a small thing, but that praise makes you feel good. I actually have a competition with my wife all the time, because she'll post a picture and I'll post a picture, and we have a similar number of friends, and I'll be like, hey, I got 54 likes on my picture, and so it's a little bit competitive, but it's really about putting something out there in the world and that you're proud of, and having other people say, yeah, that was really good. Right. So that's what fuels me. And I think the type of work that I like, and the type of work that I want to do is in that vein.
Are there any tips you have for other marketers or people that might be in your shoes in the future?
Two things come to mind. One is to travel a lot, and the other is to read a lot. Those are two things which has really helped me, because by traveling and reading, it's really opened my mind into the possibilities that are out there in the world. And when you bring in perspectives from people in different parts of the world, or some great novels that you've read, or even advertising and marketing books, it really starts to change the conversation. So my advice to anybody, whether you're in marketing or not, is to really change your perspective. And the best way to change perspective is to travel and to read.
Okay. Well, so stepping back from Expedia, What brands are you following?
Yeah.
And are there any that, get your goat, so to speak, or you just can't live without?
Ooh, well, I think it's the usual ones. I mean, Apple is. I'm an Apple fanboy. I will be in line, sleeping overnight to get the newest gadget. So there's a little bit of that, and I think it's because as an ecosystem, they've created something that just works. And I know I'm stealing a line from pop culture, but it just does work. So Apple's one of them, and I think they've done some great advertising as well as product design. I think for me, the great brands are the ones who are doing that combination of great storytelling as well as a great product. So Apple's one. I'm a huge fan of what Google is doing with their storytelling. I think their storytelling is top notch. And I look at them as a leader, especially because of the industries that we're in, which is e-commerce, and it's not something that's tangible. So how do you convey that in a very compelling way? So they're able to integrate their products into their advertising, and I think that is for fantastic. And then there's some niche brands. I mean, I Uber everything wherever I go. I think they've done a great job, but it's not just because of their product. For me, their marketing is their customer service, right? So they have done a fabulous job in terms of customer service and product design. So that's another one. I can't live without my Evernote, my Dropbox. I mean, these are two brands, again, who don't really market other than through product design and word of mouth. And I think that those types of marketing vehicles are undervalued in our world. I mean, we're all talking about big TV budgets or just TV budgets in general, maybe some online spend. But when I look at some of these niche players who don't have that, they are the confinement of lower budgets, or sometimes no budgets, really help you be more creative. And so it's through PR and social, and I think that's really where they've excelled.
Okay. So what do you see as one of the most important marketing trends today, if you were to pick one?
Marketing trends. So for me, a trend is around what's happening with data. Okay, I think that is a trend. Because of the openness of networks and the aggregation of all this data, it's making marketing much more of a scientific approach, right? Which I think is fabulous, and that to me is a trend, because as you get more data and understand what's working and what's not working, you start making different decisions. Yeah. And so we are very deep in data sciences right now, and understanding big data. And developing some predictive models around whether it be media campaigns and media placement or the creative execution. And so it's made our work much more better, but also it has given myself and the leadership team something to really look at in terms of, is this working or not, versus a brand health study, right? Which is very esoteric. While we use that, right, we are much more subscribed to using behavioral data versus intent. And I think that's the key, which is those who measure just intent could be going down the wrong path potentially. So it's measuring behavior. What are people actually doing, not what they say they will do. And for us, it's been revolutionary. It's really allowed us to do things that we weren't able to do before. Right. It's opened up budgets. It's opened up great opportunities and better creative in my mind.
With big data, do you ever find yourself swimming in it?
So there is that risk, of course. And so, so one of my mottos that I live by is act now, think later. Okay. And what that means is put something out there in the world, see how people react to it. Okay. Test and learn and move. And I think that one of the challenges with big data in terms of information paralysis, and I've been in organizations that were overwhelmed with data, and I think there's certain industries that are prone to that, and I've seen them move really slow, and it's because of the thought, which is we have all this data, we need to mine it before we make our decision and come to market with the best product possible, and some of that is a function of product life cycles and timelines. For me, maybe it's a function of being in technology. It's a function of being in the e-commerce world. It's also a personal quest, which is put something out there in the world. So act now, think later. That's my motto. And it's really around the fact of test and learn. So it's when I say think later, it's really around, let's take the data, see
Right.
what happens once we put it out in the world, and iterate and
Right.
iterate. And I think it's an industry benefit as well. Being in technology, we're able to do a little bit more of that.
How is that trend of big data? How is it shifting the organization? And do you see major changes coming? Maybe to Expedia or maybe not. Maybe just in general. How do you see the organization changing to meet that challenge?
Yeah, no, I think it's fascinating time, right? Because now you've got this great relationship in my mind between marketing and finance and analytics, right? Whereas in the past, I think there's always been some tension. We're going to spend some money in marketing. We're not sure how it's going to work. It's that adage of, we know 50% of it works. We still know which 50%, but now we do. And I think that is what's really eye-opening for those conversations when we have with finance and analytics, which is there's now a level playing field. We all understand what's working, what's not working. And so what that has done is it's opened up the purse strings, right? You're able to now spend into something if you have an understanding of how it works and if that understanding is universally accepted, right?
Right.
Versus marketing is telling me it works. Okay, I'm not sure, but we'll go for it.
Right.
Those conversations have ended. And I think that is fascinating. We're in a great time with data. We've got more work to do here as an industry. I'd love to be able to get into more predictive models. I mean, that to me is fascinating. So right now we're looking at past data, right? So how have things worked,
Right.
and making decisions based on that data. Kind of next frontier is predictive models. And we've got data scientists on our team who are just knee deep in this, and I think that's fascinating.
That's great. So you've talked a little bit about marketing mix, and in particular as you build models and predictive models. How do you see mix changing for you or for in general for the industry?
Well, yeah, part of the mix change is a function of new technologies that are out there, which have done a couple things. One, they have opened up new areas to compete in, such as social media would be one example. But also, it has brought down the cost of some of these vehicles. So your mix models that you've developed a year ago or 2 years ago based on data from 3 years ago is already outdated.
Right.
And so, as we look at Expedia, as we look at, social media, as well as programmatic ad buying, that has really changed our mix because of A, new vehicles, and B, the costs have come down. So all of a sudden, things that were maybe inefficient a year ago are now more efficient. I think I look at video advertising as a perfect example. When we first started in video advertising, it was a loss leader. I mean, there was no way we were going to make this thing work. Thankfully, in the past year and a half, what you're seeing is more networks open up that have this capability, and thus, with competition, the price comes down. And you can maintain that even with the quality placements. So we're looking very bullish on digital programmatic in specific, but digital as a whole.
Marketing mix models are changing and evolving. How do you think about the long term, short term, and short term being mixed models of yesteryear, if you will, really focus on the last 12 months and the impact within that. In terms of building a brand, as you know, it's building an asset. How do you think about that trade-off?
Yeah, it's a great question. We have, as most marketers, have been focused on the short term because that's what the data allows you to do, right? So we have pulled a lot of data to help us understand in the short term what's our return going to be. And that's important for finance. It's important as we think about quarterly budgets and communication to Wall Street in terms of traffic to our store and conversion that we get. So we're always going to be looking at that for sure. We've recently started adding long-term into our equation as we start thinking about payback models and break even. So we do have some data which helps us understand the long-term value as well as the short-term value. Now, long-term, of course, we should define what that is.
Right.
So for us, it is under a year. Okay. So short-term would be in quarter, and long-term would be in year. Okay. So we are understanding the payback models of our marketing investments within year, which I think is, again, a new conversation that we're having, which allows us to not just think about the quarter and how much money to spend in the quarter and the payback, but also what's the overall impact to the P&L this year. Now, moving beyond the year and thinking about kind of the equity of the brand, that's a different conversation. And that's where you start looking at brand health and some of those data points. I think they're a little bit more esoteric versus versus actual behavior that's happening on your site with your product.
So we've talked about marketing mix. You've talked about data and the usefulness of data. How does research factor into your data set, if you will?
Yeah, well, so I don't separate research from analytics, right? So we are doing, I think, a ton of research in terms of behaviors on our site and what people are doing and how they react and what they buy, as well as data on our competitive sites. And what they're doing there as well. So all that is part of the research and analytics mindset within our organization, the mindset within my team, which is, in the past, we would probably look at research strictly as syndicated studies around intentful behavior. But now we're merging both intent as well as behavior to understand what people say they're going to do and what do they actually do, and to measure the delta to start getting to predictive models. An example would be looking at brand health measures and correlating that with site traffic to see which is the predictive behavior. When people say, I am likely to visit your store, do we see a change in traffic? And what is that relationship? And as you increase or decrease your share of voice in the marketplace, does that relationship strengthen or weaken? So it's part of the models that we're building at Expedia, and it is again having a great impact in terms of changing the dialogue we would have with a CFO or with an analytics group.
Good. Well, how about research? So, if you were to design the perfect study, blue sky,
yeah,
what would it tell you?
That's a big question. I think for us the answer is really around why. Right? We know a lot about what people do on our site with our competitors. If I take my product as an example, we know how many rooms they're going to buy on a visit to our site, which airlines are going to most likely travel with. And a lot of this is based on big data that we have internally. Right. We know the average flight that's being taken and the hotel that's being used. What we don't know, we don't have good data on, I think, is the why. Why do people travel? And of course, it changes by trip type, right? Whether you're going to a graduation or whether you're going for a work trip or whether you're going vacation with the friends. But then why do you pick certain brands that you pick? How do you make that decision? There's many factors. Price is a factor. Reviews are a factor. But I think there's something much more primal, much more basic. And those are the types of things that I'd love to really investigate because it helps with developing marketing insights, right? So if the insight is it's the cheapest price, that's never going to lead to great creative work. So I think we're making forays there, but this is a big question I think every marketer has on their minds, which is why do people do what they do? Why do we shop? How do we shop?
Some have hypothesized that this digital shift is we're all eventually going to just be digital marketers. Do you believe in that hypothesis? Do you think that's overblown?
I think that there's going to be a digitization of everything we do. So that I fundamentally believe in, and I welcome it. Right. So an example would be if I look at the TV marketplace. So we're in the upfront season right now, negotiating those deals, and this is an industry that's ripe for transformation. I mean, it is very, if I can say, it's very archaic in terms of the way things happen if you compare it to the digital landscape. So the digitization of media choices, I think, is something that's going to happen. And by that, what I mean is, as we look what's going on with programmatic on TV, as we look to the different data streams that we can get with our digital placements, I think that more and more of those types of, again, data sciences are being applied to television, and I welcome it because this is where we're spending the most of our dollars as an industry as a whole. This is the place that needs more data around it, and so I welcome it. I don't think we're going to ever walk away from we as an industry are going to walk away from some of these traditional sources. So I don't think we're all going to become digital marketers, but the digitalization of marketing is on the forefront, and I'm in the front row.
Nice. So stepping back from it all,
Mm-hmm.
Expedia, the Effie Award.
Yeah.
Congratulations again.
Thank you.
If you had it to do all over again, what would you be? What would you do?
I'd be an investment banker. It's much more lucrative, much more lucrative. But in all fairness, that's a tough one. I actually don't think I would change a thing. I'm a firm believer that things happen for a reason, and we're all here for a reason. And so I try not to look back on the past, and therefore very happy with what we've done, what I've done, and optimistic about where I'm headed and where the company's headed. So I think my real answer, other than I'd love to get investment banker salaries and bonuses. Maybe not the hours.
Yeah.
Other than that, I'm actually very happy with where we are, and I wouldn't change a thing.
That's great. Well, again, thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for joining
Thank you.
us.